people inside the Pentagon warned Donald Trump about, as did people across the foreign policy community. So now people inside his own administration and the Pentagon are saying that, yes, his actions have led to the resurgence of ISIS. It's obviously something we've seen before, and you just wonder whether he's going to double down or whether he's going to actually do what Barack Obama started and keep ISIS on the run.
So on multiple fronts now, the administration is facing the prospect of ISIS resurging. Syria, Iraq, but also in Afghanistan. We had a series of 10 coordinated attacks in Afghanistan on Monday in an area where we know that IS is present just at the time that the Americans are trying to negotiate some kind of peace deal or effectively withdrawal agreement for American forces from Afghanistan. And it has to be a reminder of this report and what we've seen happen in Afghanistan in the last few days, that it's very complicated. If you pull back American forces in a way that is too precipitous or is not coordinated, is not thought out, does not leave behind some kind of political solution, then this is an organization that reemerges, whether it's in the form of Al-Qaeda in some areas or in the form of Islamic State in other areas. And it jeopardizing exactly what Donald Trump wants to do. This is why Barack Obama, when he pulled back from Iraq, that created the space for Islamic State to emerge in Syria. If you pull back, there is definitely this risk. It's something the president's wanted to do, but now he's seeing it right in all three of these countries. There's a prospect for them reemerging.
And Mika, you know, you have the same concerns in Afghanistan. We saw what happened in Iraq. Everybody rightfully became impatient and wanted troops to come home from Iraq. I certainly understand that and wanted it as well. But that created a void that led to ISIS. Barack Obama dismissed it as a regional threat before having to start this process that eventually led to the destruction of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Donald Trump followed through on that, but now Donald Trump seems to be repeating the same mistake. And he's not only talking about repeating the same mistake there, he's talking about repeating that mistake in Afghanistan. Lindsey Graham, other Republicans, some Democrats are sounding the warning that if you do this, our troops are going to just have to go back over there and fight ISIS again. There are no shortcuts in a war against terrorists.
The Federal Election Commission is pushing back against the president's claims of voter fraud in the 2016 election. Trump tweeted yesterday, quote, "Wow, report just out. Google manipulated from 2.6 million to 16 million votes for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. This was put out by a Clinton supporter, not a Trump supporter. Google should be sued. My victory was even bigger than thought."
Oh, my goodness.
Nothing is bigger than thought. According to a Washington Post analyst, Trump appears to be referencing a study by psychologist Robert Epstein, whose testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee last month was featured in a segment on Fox moments before the president fired off his tweet. And while Epstein identifies himself as a Democrat who backed Clinton, that's a convenient figure since Clinton won by about 2.9 million votes nationally. But the Post points out that's not what Epstein said in his testimony. He estimated a range of 2.6 to 10.4 million votes, with 15 million votes being the possible shift in 2020. That's 2.6 million estimate, he said, was the rock bottom estimate. It's also unclear what methodology was being used. FEC Chair Ellen Weintraub yesterday disputed Trump's claims.
There is no evidence of rampant voter fraud in 2016 or really in any previous election. People have studied this. Academics have studied this. Lawyers have studied this. The government has studied this. Democrats have studied this. Republicans have studied this. And no one can find any evidence of rampant voter fraud, either historically or particularly in the 2016 elections.
I'll get this tag, Mika. Okay. And FEC Chair Ellen Weintraub joins the conversation ahead on Morning Joe. Willie, you now expect Donald Trump to start talking about crowd size. For many people yesterday suggested that this was once again the president looping not a good look for him, and still ridiculous that he is still claiming that there was massive voter fraud when he has absolutely no evidence of it.
Yeah, and the author of the study, Robert Epstein, actually came out yesterday and said he didn't say Google manipulated those votes and that the president was twisting his words. But Gene Robinson, here we are again, the president of the United States disputing the numbers around the election. It started with the inauguration numbers, you know, the crowd size at his inauguration. He's obsessed with the idea that America is not celebrating his victory, that he didn't win by as much he did, that he lost the popular vote, that somehow the questions around Russia call into question how he won the election. This has been a thorn in his side since the day he was elected.
Yeah, size has always mattered to this president, and he's completely obsessed with this idea because it's true that he won a very narrow electoral victory and lost the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes, and this drives him crazy, and will continue to drive him crazy. But you know, so he's focused on these numbers. You know, that first segment we talked about these incredible problems, the rise of ISIS, and you know, Hong Kong streets are full of demonstrators, and there's all this stuff going on in the world. The president is obsessed with his crowd size at the New Hampshire rally last week, where he insists that people mention that his crowd was bigger than Elton John's. He's very, very big on that. And instead of thinking about you know, Hong Kong and Afghanistan and these places where there's all this turmoil, he's focused on Greenland. We're going to buy Greenland, apparently. It's just a real estate deal, and that's what he's obsessed about. It's just insane, but here we are, 2019. Welcome. Have a nice summer.
Yeah, and Ellen
Thanks.
Weintraub, as Mika said, will be on our show, and she has consistently, dating back to a few months ago, even said there's not been voter fraud in the 2016 election. So we'll talk.